I want everybody here just to imagine you're out on the lake, nice sunny day, with all your friends, fishing out on your boat, and you bring in one of these bad boys right here. Big old 8, 9 pound bass. The excitement, your adrenaline, everything rushing around, it's just an all around good time. So I'm here today to talk to you about three of the most popular and efficient bass lures on the market today. The first one I want to get into is what is called the Texas rig or a worm rig. Now this one here consists of three major parts. The first one here is going to be what's called a bullet weight. Next part here we have is a circle hook, and then we also have a rubber worm or lizard or crawdad, whichever one you prefer. Just kind of depends on your luck with any of those. Basically, how this thing works is this bullet weight is directing the motion of your bait. So in order to use this rig here, you're using more of a jerking motion with the pole. And how it works is whenever this jerks, your weight drops, and then your lure automatically follows it. So it's almost like it's bobbing up and down and swimming. And it attracts the fish as like a wounded creature on the bottom just because it can't quite keep itself up off the bottom. It's also very handy when you're in heavily weeded areas or mossy areas, because if you can see here, the hook is actually still inside of the worm or the lizard, whichever one you're using. So it's not exposed, so you're less likely to be snagged on those. So you're throwing out, and with your pole here, you're kind of keeping it down low, and you're doing more of a jerking motion in order to pull that weight to hop the lure right there. And then give it a couple jerks, reel it in a little more, reel in your slack, they call it, your extra line out there. And you do that until you bring it all the way in. Very efficient. Like I said, very popular to use in weeded areas. Just makes it less likely to get snagged. The next one I want to talk about is perhaps one of the most popular ones, and that is just your basic spinner. This one's a little different in terms of how you use it and what it does. So this one here is actually a shallow water lure, which means it's not getting too far under the water as you're bringing it in. And this one is a constant reeling lure. So that just means once you throw it out, the whole time you're using it, you're just reeling your line in. So this one here is actually tied right up here to the line. So it's strung out here and you're pulling it. And these, which are your spinners, that's why it's called a spinner bait, are spinning in the water and giving off like a little glint in the sunlight. If you can see here, there's sparkles on them, which give them that color, as well as the skirt. Gives it a little bit of color to attract fish. And as you pull, these are actually spinning through the water to give it a more lifelike appearance, because it's constantly moving. Both of these are spinning. These are popular just throwing out up towards the bank. A little more popular because they move at about the speed of that a fish would be moving, a smaller bait fish. These here, like I said, are a constant reeling bait, so you throw your line out, and then what you want to do is you want to hold your pole a little low to the ground, and then you're just constantly reeling, and that'll get the spinners on it to spin and attract those fish. The third kind of lures I want to talk about are what's called topwater, and I've brought two with me today, two of what I believe to be the most efficient of topwater. This one here on your left is called a buzzbait, and this one here is just a frog. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the buzzbait. Joe Kremel actually writes a pretty detailed article on this and what it's good for and how it's used. Just like a spinner, it's very similar. You throw the line out and you're constantly reeling. But this one actually is called a topwater for a reason. This one actually floats along the top of the water. This here is what's called your buzz, is spinning as you're reeling that in. And there's these little scoops on here, you can see here, that as it's spinning are actually picking up the water to give the image that an animal is scurrying across the top of the water. It's a big attractor for large bass. This is commonly used either really early in the day as the sun's coming up, or later at night as the sun's going down, because that's when a majority of creatures in the water and outside of the water are moving throughout the day. So it's very popular at those times. The next one I'm going to talk about is the frog. And much like the Texas rig, it is a jerking bait. So we're throwing our line out and we're jerking this along the surface. And as it does, it kind of moves in a zigzag pattern like this. And these here actually float on the water to give the appearance of the frog's legs kicking throughout the water. And just like the buzzbait, it's common for bass to hit on these because they're a very good supply of food. John Merwin actually talks about buzzbaits and these frogs is very popular, especially with largemouth bass. There's a couple different kinds of bass, like largemouth striped bass and things like that. So different kinds of bass, but these are particularly popular with largemouth bass. So like I said, all very efficient, fairly easy to use, and if you want to bring in the big bass, these are what I believe to be some of the best lures you can do that with. If you want to know more about anything, you can actually check out an article called Battle of the Bass Lures by Joe Kremel. He writes a very detailed article about several different lures you can use and how to use them. So that's what I have for you guys. Just never get this image right here out of your head. It's a great time, great sport to be a part of, and these are pretty cheap lures you can get your hands on to bring in the big fish.